Okay, Mr. Mullen.
Final point, Madam Chair. It just, as you were talking, this just strikes me as something that would be best handled in a regulatory context. Would you disagree with that? In a regulatory context and rulemaking and findings and research and those kinds of things, ought we be dictating that from this dais, or would it be better handled, as the DTSC, I guess, is already pursuing? That's actually news to me. I would need to look at that. But your thoughts on that?
So let me suggest that the economic architecture of consumer products takes these effects and makes them economic externalities. That means that the people who are selling the product are not responsible for things that happen out of acute toxicity. Putting that into the regulatory environment, because there's a lot of unknown, means we don't get to discover which ones matter. So what I would say is, let's trust all of us as consumers to make decisions based on information that we actually have access to. As I said, the argument about confidential business information, having been in the industry, is a cynical fiction. They all know what's in they are not worried about the people who are going to read the ingredients off the label and try to copy their product. Those people don't. And if you had a couple of $1,000s, you could go have a product deformulated too. It is not the truth. They are trying to hide their ingredients from the people who should be at the center of this, which is the people in the stores trying to make smart decisions. Remember, we buy these products for the health and safety. We want clean homes. We want our families to be healthy. We bring chemicals into our lives.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Mr. Gatto.
Thank you. So I think there's a lot of very good points that have been made so far. I agree with most everything that Mr. Mullen said, except for the fact that maybe regulators should handle this. And I think you made a very good point, sir, about the fiction of trade secrets. And I respect the author very much. I think he's one of the most thoughtful members up here. I am still trying to get my head around this bill and trying to grasp the purpose, what we're trying to solve, and everything like that. So for the most dangerous cleaners, some of the witnesses talked about trying to preserve wearing a face mask, and then a lot of the things that we focused on in the last couple of minutes have been allergens. Things that are, when I hear a face mask, I think of something like bleach. I think of something that is immediately detrimental to one's respiratory system. When I hear an allergen, I think about something that over the long term might give somebody some sort of side effects. So do you want to address that?
The bill, obviously there's laws to protect people about the truly hazardous ingredients, like insecticides, which a disinfectant is pesticides or disinfectants, all that goes through FIFRA, the federal law, and it says you shall label it. So you'll see commonly active ingredient, dihexyl, whatever, other 99%. It's that other that we're worried about because we don't need to replicate federal law. The other can include asthmagens and allergens. And people often by trial and error start to figure, why am I getting hives? Why are my eyes watering and burning? Why do I wheeze? And they sort it out. Eventually, I won't use that product, and this one doesn't do it. That's what this is about.
So this bill,
the FDA isn't getting it.
I'm sorry, I'm talking. Okay. This bill is dealing with allergens. Then it's not dealing with harmful chemicals. Harmful chemicals are addressed by Prop 65 and the federal government.
Actually, not. In the Prop 65 has a safe harbor limit too. So if you're below a certain level, you don't have to list it. If this bill became law, you would list all the things, whether they're carcinogens, and we have a list. We handed it out of the chemicals and clean ingredients, and many say carcinogen, reproductive toxicant, not just allergen and asthmagen. So they're in there too.
Yes, if the chair allows.
Yes, please answer. Please respond into the microphone.
Sorry, I'm trainable here. So you bring up
it's okay, you can turn your back to him.
Okay, you bring up a really important point, and that is we classify things as allergens, but people have a wide range of different physiological reactions to things, many of which we don't understand because we are immersed in literally a symphony of complex chemicals, most of which were not around 50 or 100 years ago. So in order to make smart decisions, that information needs to be accessible because it may turn out that you have a set of sensitivities, and once you discover what those are, they will be the filter that allow you to make smart decisions going forward. Denying people access to we need to trust our consumers. What's really interesting is they're all walking around.
I think Mr. Gatto has a follow-up.
But I still am. So on a label of something like Windex, it'll disclose that it has ammonia, some kind of dye, green number 5, which I see on Easter eggs, and it'll probably disclose the components of its fragrance. It'll say grapefruit ester number 235 or something. How does that inform a consumer? I understand your point about the pattern if you go and get an allergy test for a specific ester, but as someone who has allergies, I'm just not understanding how this would somehow clear something up. I mean, as opposed to just using certain precautions when you're using a chemical and avoiding label fatigue.
So once you've gotten a reaction to a product, you've done the allergy test. That'll give you information which you can use as a filter in making future choices. And the problem is that without... Okay, done.
No, I mean, just speak into the microphone,
Oh,
please.
sorry. The problem is that we really don't know enough to make decisions prospectively. So we have to make them on the basis of our experience. And without providing people with that information, that's just not possible.
Can I just do a clarification on that? So what I heard you say is that, in other words, if you get an allergic reaction, you've become the guinea pig and you decide to start wearing gloves. You're saying there's actually data that could be collected over a period of time that could illuminate the medical field or consumers ultimately as to these effects. So it's not just consumer by consumer getting different allergy reactions. Is that what you're
Absolutely. We live in a future where this knows more about you than your doctor. You pointed at a product and you say, when I use this, I have a problem. You pointed at several products. All of us start doing this, and we start discovering that these particular group of compounds may put more people at risk.
And then as I understood from your earlier testimony, that drives then a change in manufacturing in the business place to say, let's find a new, better ingredient that doesn't have this effect on this percentage of the population.
And the most important ingredient driving innovation in this area is trust. That is the decision-making ingredient. As more and more people see broken promises between the products they're buying and the results they're getting, the idea that I'm going to be transparent and I'm going to innovate in the place of not just the ingredients I use, but how I relate to you, how I build that trust, that's where the jobs in California will come from.
Right. That's why we have a whole product line called, Honest Products for Babies.
That was just valued at $1 billion after only being in the market for 2 years.
Yeah. All right, Ms. Baker.
Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Jones-Sawyer, for this very thoughtful bill. I have a couple points. And I came into this hearing, I really wanted to hear what you had to say in the full debate because I was just uncertain as a parent. I want to be able to get information I need to protect myself and my kids. My son was allergic to food issues, so we had to really read labels. And there's an area out there where labels are a lot less overbroad than this for the great concern that you're raising. As Mr. Mullen mentioned, this is a laundry list. And how is it going to be useful to consumers if we're not being smarter about the information that's actually out there? So I have a very great concern about the overbreadth of what we're asking for here because we do need this to be useful. But my greater concern is that much of your testimonies undermine the support of the bill, and that is in the sense that we can empower consumers to do this. You've pointed out so many examples of there's whole new product lines, the marketplace completely responding to consumers who won't buy the Windex because it doesn't list everything, but who will buy the product that does list more. So I'm wondering two things. Why does this have to be so overbroad? Why are you open to discussions about a more surgical strike on this so that we are being smarter about how we can protect consumers? And secondly, the marketplace to some degree is handling this, and not just by voluntary, but the $1 billion valuation that you just gave is a complete example why consumers can be trusted and affect what is actually happening better than we might be able to with an overbroad framework.
And I'm definitely open to working, especially if this bill gets out of this committee, to working with the opponents of the bill. I do not believe that because of trade secrets that the industry wants to use trade secrets, hold them back, and have someone die because they're allergic to something, because it's something that they don't want to disclose. I don't believe they want to go in that direction. And I'm very sensitive to the whole issue of trade secrets. With technology, using a website, and maybe working with the industry and others to make it very clear, maybe even on the website, what things could be harmful to you. I know for a fact what kind of brought this to me in light we have a colleague that has an allergy, and one time he just got a little dot, a little drop of shrimp on him, and he almost died. And that colleague's now in the Senate now. And so I became very sensitive to, I don't have any allergies, unfortunately, so I don't know what it's like to have that, but I know it's real.
Well, spend a few more years in Sacramento and you'll have them. I can personally attest to that.
And then I watch all these commercials late at night, whether it's heart disease, Viagra, whatever, and they mention a litany of from diarrhea to death, and I'm like, I feel like I'm overburdened with all the disclaimers on it. We also realize it's very important to have that, and so this bill is about providing information so that we don't have any deaths, and that we can make it better.
So to the author, I just want to direct your attention to page 8 of the analysis, and there are some issues that we have raised that might help in the response to committee members' questions if you're specifically open to addressing the issues raised there. One is the issue of has been raised on how do we know whether these are good or bad, and having information and a link to some information that would illuminate the consumer. But another one in the second paragraph there is dealing with the percent, the fraction. Instead of it being 100, maybe it needs to be a more targeted. And so these are issues we've raised that we feel need to be dealt with in the bill. So maybe you could respond as to whether you're open to addressing and accepting these ideas as you move forward, if you do.
I'm open to all those ideas. I'm open to looking at font size. I'm open to looking at grace period for it to be implemented. I'm definitely open to limiting the number of ingredients on the label so that we can reach that threshold that we understand that we get to where the consumer, it will be very helpful to the consumer. And so I think with dialogue between the experts who are doing marketing and things of that nature, I think we'll be able to come to a compromise that will work for everyone.
All right. Eggman, Ms. Eggman.
Thank you. And I think the chair just went over some of the things I was concerned about. I love where you're trying to go. I don't know that the bill in its current form actually gets there, and especially when you state this issue favors low-wage workers, women, people of color, immigrants, and not to say anything, but I'm somebody with a PhD. I can't understand half the things that I read on labels, so I don't know how helpful it is for somebody that you're trying to protect to have a long laundry list of things that they don't know, first of all, what those things mean for the most part. I mean, not many of us sitting up here do know what every single label means or ingredient, and which ones are dangerous and which ones aren't, and who's got the time then to go look all those things up to see if it's dangerous or not. So it seems to me it'd be a better use of time to have things that are actually dangerous listed for people, and then they can make those decisions.
And right now, what we're asking is to list more dangerous things on. The previous proposition only went to a certain threshold, so we're trying to make sure it does become a little more comprehensive to include everything possible.
Well,
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Wood.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you for bringing the bill forward, and I appreciate where you're going with this. I have some concerns, and I guess as you had witnesses here talking about cleaning chemicals and things like that, totally get that. Now we're talking about fragrances and toys, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm having a hard time connecting the dots here, and I have an advanced degree like Dr. Eggman here as well. So I'm like, and I see you see the bottle, or the little canister you have with this label on bottom. At some point, I fear we're going to annoy consumers with this kind of every product having these long things like this that with very small font that are difficult to read. So you're asking for labeling essentially on products and the websites and so on. Would you consider directing people to websites? Would you and not having those streamers on them? And go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I believe there's a compromise to be had. to make sure that the bill moves forward.
Okay.
And I need to get both sides together to get there.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Wood.
I still have some. I guess, in looking at the bottle of Windex there and understanding that there are chemicals in Windex that cause concern for people. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to smell it and smell there's ammonia in there. But could there not be a way to label that like we do in commercial industrial things, where there are labels that say specifically there is a chemical here that could be caustic, referring people to a website to say, hey, here are what those are, without this extensive sort of thing. And I guess I go back to the thought that just listing an ingredient out of context could potentially, I believe, unnecessarily alarm the public, because there are ingredients in products at certain levels that really have potentially no harm. But listing that ingredient there sets off all sorts of fire alarms to people. From my personal experience, there are things in products that I worked in my industry that had things that could be technically listed as carcinogens in my office, but knowing the context in which you're using those things and how you're approaching that doesn't necessarily mean it's harmful to the public. And that's where my concerns get. Can you tell me where the last place you saw a Prop 65 warning was?
Trying to remember.
Probably.
And that's the point. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
And so we're going to wrap this up, and I'm going to briefly with the author. We have a couple options here. You've heard the comments and the questions, and we have a number of suggestions here in the analysis as well. The bill could be held over. We could take a vote. The bill could be held over to next week, and you could work on amendments and bring it back. Or we could take a vote. You could ask for reconsideration, and we could come back next week to discuss the amendments you would take. So the choice is either just hold it over, work on amendments, bring it back, take a vote, and have reconsideration, and we'll do discussion on those amendments. But it's up to the author.
Okay.
Or we just vote on it as is.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, for me, this should not be this controversial or have angst to the committee.
So you'd
members.
like to work on it.
So I would like to work on it, hold it over, because I still believe we may not get 100%. I'm just going to be very fair. But we may get to where I can at least get this body to move forward with it.
And these would be the members you would be needing to run those amendments by, as well as the committee. You have a basis here.
Yes, I do.
In our consultant suggestions to work from on those amendments. Thank you very much. So we'll hold the bill over until next week and review the amendments at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members.
I'm going to do my job. I'm now going to do AB 662 and turn it over to the Vice Chair. I have my witnesses here, and that's why I'm jumping in. They've been waiting outside. Then they're going to enter here. Okay. Yes. We have just three of them. Oh. Yeah. There's no opposition. Oh, no, there is opposition. I didn't say that.
All right, next up is Chairwoman Bonilla with her bill, AB 662. If witnesses in support can start making their way to the front. That way we'll be ready when she's concluded her opening statements.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members. First of all, I'd like to start by accepting the committee amendments. I'm pleased to present AB 662, which expands public restroom accommodations in commercial places of public amusement that serve more than 1,000 people. The bill requires such places to install an adult changing station for individuals with a physical disability. I just want to say that this is a district bill. These were some of my constituents that came to me with this concern, and I'm happy that you'll be able to meet them shortly. And I think that as you think about going out to commercial places of public amusement, auditoriums, sports arenas, theaters, we understand that we need some issues of access addressed for the public. The new requirement would apply to all new construction as of January 1, 2020, and to public restroom renovations in existing buildings on January 2029. So we are looking out into the future. To address opposition concerns, we have amended the bill to ensure the proper regulatory entity adopts regulations. So the bill is not seeking to be specific. We would go to the building regulators to get into the details. We don't prescribe what kind of a changing station it would be. It could be a number of varieties. Our society is changing, where young people with physical disabilities and seniors are engaging in the community. I think we all agree the days where if you have a disability, you just stay home and don't ever go out are over. We have a whole new acceptance, and I think this is a result of the past laws that we've embraced that have said anyone with a disability should be able to function freely in our society. They want to go to sporting events, concerts, and other forms of entertainment that will enhance their quality of life. According to a 2014 report by the Department of Developmental Services, there are approximately 53,000 persons with physical disabilities that could benefit from an adult changing station. By expanding public restroom accommodations in large occupancy buildings, we're ensuring that people with physical disabilities and their families are given the dignity and the basic human right to maintain their health. And today I have two witnesses with me who are going to be giving their testimony. But I think, as you will hear from my witnesses, the reality of having to be put on the floor to be changed is something that this bill seeks to rectify and say there are basic dignities and respect that we need to accord everyone in our population. And so I believe it's this Nicole who I have first. Nicole Boslag, who is going to testify first.
Hello, Chairperson and committee members. I'm Nicole Boslag from Antioch, and I'm here today to speak in support of AB 662. As you can see, I am a person that has some pretty significant physical needs, and like so many of my peers with disabilities like my own, I strive to be a contributing member of my community that leads a life as full and full of choices as anybody else. Sometimes, though, this is easier said than done. On my journey to lead a full life, I must plan my day around places that are accessible, and having restrooms I can actually use means not having accidents, not having to cut my day short, and not having to risk my personal dignity. AB 662 would be a godsend in opening up much more of the world to me and all other Californians like me. Simply put, having the ability to use a changing table at places where there are lots of visitors and lots to do, like theaters and amusement parks, would enhance our lives, open up places that everyone else enjoys, and let us enjoy visits without having to risk our health in the process. So in closing, on behalf of myself, the developmental disability community, and the greater community of people with disabilities, please support Assemblymember Bonnier's bill, AB 662. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
Nicole is a board member of the Alive Consumer Action Committee and board member of the Contra Costa Developmental Disabilities Council. Thank you. We also have Elisa Rosio, resident of Concord, and mother of two teenage boys, Max and Leonardo. And they are students in the Mount Diablo Unified School District. And it was Alyssa who actually brought the bill to my attention, the bill idea.
Mr. Chair and committee members, my name is Elisa Rosio. I am in support of AB 662 because I wish for my sons to have the same rights as you and me. Although I could use my 2 minutes to persuade you, I wish to give you perspective instead. You probably left your homes today making sure you used the restroom before you left. You might have gotten stuck in traffic on the way in and hopped into the restroom one more time before you settled in your office today. And maybe just one more quick stop before you came in for this hearing so that the coffee didn't hit you, well, maybe right about now. My sons got changed this morning at 7 a.m. before our 90-minute drive from Concord and will not be changed again until this hearing is concluded and have driven the 90 minutes home. This is their norm. With the exception of school, everywhere we go does not have a bathroom that meets my son's needs. And I ask, would you drive and spend the day out if you knew that there was not a single place for you to use the restroom? Would you be willing to put on a diaper and possibly need to use it in order to go somewhere fun? For my sons, a day of fun, or a day like today, comes with the sacrifice of becoming and staying soiled until we get home. And it is a travesty to assume that because someone does not have continence, they do not have cognition. Most, like my sons, are aware of their current circumstances and wonder if the people around them are as well aware. Their schools recognize that it is neither safe or sanitary for them to go through a school day, and their IEPs and individualized education plans provide them the accommodations that they need. Many people choose to stay home and stay silent because who wants to talk about restrooms? The veterans, the elderly, people with disabilities, all because they cannot use a restroom in a public place. We choose to ask for the honor of dignified dependence and ask for you to support us today in providing these accommodations for changing facilities to the last group of people who I believe have been overlooked by our current ADA regulations, not by malice, but because of perspective. I urge you to vote yes today on AB 662. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Other witnesses in support of the bill? Witnesses in opposition to the bill?
Support.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Greg DeGere, representing the ARC and United Cerebral Palsy California Collaboration, a coalition of people with intellectual and all developmental disabilities and their families, friends, and service providers. And we very much support Ms. Bonda's bill. Thank you for introducing it.
Other witnesses in support?
Will Stanford Futures Explored. We're the sponsor of the bill. Actually, it's our Consumer Action Committee, which Nicole represented very finely here, who voted to support this because it's all about their ability to get into and around their community, be a part of their community. They contribute greatly. They're well known in the Capitol for their advocacy up here. I again ask you to support this bill to give them greater access. Thank you.
Hi, C.T. Weber. Today I'm representing California Alliance for Retired Americans in support of the bill. Thank you.
Chris Rice, California Disability Services Association. We are an association of more than 90 organizations that provide services to people with developmental disabilities. We support about 45,000 individuals. We support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support? Seeing none others, are there witnesses in opposition to the bill?
Good morning. Anthony Sampson with the California Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also here representing the California Building Industry Association and California Business Properties Association, whose representatives couldn't be here today. By no means are we opposing the policy direction that this bill is attempting to go. It's simply a matter of process and building code regulation, and we've been working with the author staff, who's been gracious enough to work with us. We still have some concerns with the amendments, but we've talked with the author staff, who's agreed to work with us moving forward. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move the bill.
There's a motion and a second. Member comments or questions?
Just a quick one. Can you
Ms. Baker?
comment a little bit on what are some of the amendment areas that they're working on that might make either more flexibility or make this more workable?
It's really what I mentioned at the very beginning, that we are not being prescriptive. We're going to the building. What's the name of the building? Building Standards Commission, to allow them to basically say how this should be done.
Mm-hmm.
So we've tried to take out anything from the bill other than to refer to them to actually make it workable so that it can take place.
Thank you.
Ms. Bonilla, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask for public comment in opposition, so if I may interrupt real quick and do that. Other public comment in opposition to the bill, please.
Good morning, Nicolina Hernandez with the California Travel Association, also in opposition, and we align our comments with the ones previously stated.
Thank you. Sorry that I overlooked you. Any other public comment in opposition to the bill? Mr. Bloom, you asked to be addressed.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank the chair for bringing this to us. I think when it comes to fruition, it is going to be a great step forward for the disabilities community. My understanding is that this is already something that occurs in Great Britain.
Yes. Other countries in Europe as well.
And other countries in Europe. So it's a good step for us, and it sounds like you are approaching this in a way that will make certain that it happens in a timely fashion, but also respects the needs for various professions to weigh in and make sure that it's workable as it moves forward. Thank you.
Other member comments? Seeing none others, no other member comments? Just let me address Ms. Bonilla. I came in today fully expecting to vote no on your bill, but then through your witness's testimony, I recognize that I have some folks in my own district that might be impacted by this bill, and I appreciate the extended time frames of your, when you want them to take effect. So I'm going to lay off for today, but I would like to continue the conversation with your office and the opponents, and this is a brand new issue area for me. So, but I know I've got some constituents that this would be important to. So I'm going to lay off for today. With that, we will. There's no other member comments. We'll call the roll.
Motion is due pass as amended to appropriations. Bonilla.
Aye.
Bonilla, aye. Jones.
Not voting.
Not voting. Baker. Baker not voting. Bloom. Aye. Bloom, aye. Campos. Chang. Dodd. Aye. Dodd, aye. Eggman. Aye. Eggman, aye. Gatto. Aye. Gatto, aye. Holden. Mullen. Aye. Mullen, aye. Ting. Wilk.
Aye.
Wilk, aye. Wood. Aye. Wood, aye. Compass, aye. 9-0, measures out.
9-0, your measure is out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms.
I'm going
Bonilla.
to step out just to say goodbye. If you
Okay, that'd be great. Do you want me to continue on with, do we have Ms. Eggman? Are you ready to present on your bill? Great. Ms. Eggman's going to be presenting AB 282, corded window coverings. If the witnesses in support can start making their way to the table, I'd appreciate it. Ms. Eggman, you may open when you are ready.